So where is Haiti? Of course, Haiti is in the Caribbean near Dominican Republic, which is sharing the same island called Hispaniola, according to the Spanish. So the Spanish took all of the island, but then some French pirates, the French came there and then made some French settlers. Hello guys! Hi! Welcome to our channel. In today's episode, we're gonna be talking about the Haitian Revolution. So, just to make this clear, Haiti's name brought by the Haitians themselves was called Haiti, not Haiti. So for the whole of this video, we'll be calling it Haiti, its original name. So, Haiti got occupied by Spain when the Spain claimed to have discovered Central America. Of course, you know who we are talking about. The name that shouldn't be named. Christopher Columbus. Everybody or the Spanish criminal. That's how we're going to be naming him as the Spanish criminal. So, when the Spanish criminal and his army of Spanish men came to the island, they saw many Haitians and the Haitians gave them gold. So, when they found out about gold and also found about sugar, diamonds, and indigo, and don't forget coffee. So, then France started making settlers in the country. So, then the French claimed those settlers as still considered French people. So, the French, and they lived in the western side of Hispaniola. So that meant that France ruled the western side of Spain, of Spanish Hispaniola. But Spain did not agree with that in the first case. But then, France completely took one part and it was agreed. Hispaniola will be separated into two parts. The Spanish Santo Domingo, and then the French Saint-Domingue. So, being divided, this whole island, don't forget that they were just one island, Hispaniola. So where is this island? This island is in the Caribbean. So when the French and the Spanish finally agreed on who owns which land, then they started what they do best, mischief. So the first thing they did was that they first tried to enslave them. Then after that, those criminals stole Africans and placed them with the Haitians. So then they can make some kind of mix to have more slaves. And then if those Africans die, they'll replenish a new one from Africa. Instead of giving them food and clothes, they'll just replenish a new one. It's how the criminals did it. So, let's hear more of France's west side. Okay, so as you know, it was called Santo Domingo. So let's just call it. What happens to the natives? That's the question that we should first ask in this story. What happened to the natives? When Columbus came, Columbus killed most of them. All of them died
That was just called ethnic cleansing, and it still happens nowadays today. If you don't like this ethnic group, just clean it from the world. It won't exist again.
And that's what the Spanish did to the Haitians. So now continuing with the French doing their mischief to Santo Domingue.
So all of this mischief had slavery, okay? So with many horrible things. Let's not dive deep into this because this is a part of history that we Africans rather forget.
So first you'll be taken to the plantation and then you start cutting down sugar cane for the rest of your life. And if you try to escape, you'll be whipped or even massacred.
So this was the sad thing about living in Haiti at that time. But what came from Haiti at that time? Haiti was one of the richest countries. Nowadays, in today's stage, everybody call Haiti poor. But at that time, Haiti was the richest. I said the richest country, if not in the world, then in the whole of the Americas. I said the world. It brought most of the sugar of France and Britain. Almost half of the percent of coffee.
And it gives everybody that owned that colony clothes made of indigo feathers.
You know, at that time, indigo was the rarest thing in the world. So nobody had found it except in Brazil. And there was just small majority of it. But when you find an island that was just filled with it,
then you go crazy.
So let's first introduce our first leader. First, from Jamaica.
His name is Duty Boukman, or Boukman Duty.
But we'll be calling him Boukman, just as he was originally called by his comrades. So let's start this story. So he was running away from British Jamaica. At that time it was called British Jamaica,
and the British owned Jamaica at that time. So he was, one day his mother was being bad. She got whipped, she got killed. But then it technically means the rest of that family needs to be punished. The dad got punished, but Boukman ran away to Haiti.
And that's why he found the conditions of Haiti was just perfect
to start
a revolution. So he's one of our greatest leaders. Not from Haiti, but from Jamaica. So let's start.
And that's why Haiti, anytime you're talking about friendship, about Haiti, you first start with Jamaica. Because Jamaica helped Haiti by bringing Boukman.
So, let's start. So Boukman is the most important guy in this whole revolution because he started it, of course. So how did he start the revolution? Let's give the details with King Dave.
So Boukman, when he came there, then he found out that nothing good was happening to the Africans. So then he started massacring loyal African slaves. When he was done with that, he taught the unloyal slaves how to poison their slave masters. And it made sense because if you hate someone and they are destroying your people's lives, the best idea is to kill them.
Just logic thinking. How will you feel if people start whipping you for no particular reason? Won't you feel angry? That's called common sense.
And Duty Bookman used his common sense to teach the Africans how to use nature against those criminals.
So part of the nature helping is they will gather near a crocodile lake, take lots of the criminals from France that they have taken from their homes
and throw them in the lake.
And then throw them in the lake.
First they'll do a traditional dance holding the French in their hands above their heads. And then at the end of the dance, they'll throw them into the water and leave the crocodiles to eat them. The other ones that will refuse to come out of their house, they will be poisoned.
They will be poisoned, of course. Or either later will be burnt. So let's understand how this whole
after Bookman made a good uprising attempt, then the French captured Bookman. They burnt him and put his head on a spike, so no one would think of the idea again. But
this time the French instead have taught the Haitians how to fear no death.
And now the French have taught the Haitians how to play with fire. Fire with fire.
So, how? Now here's our next leader, which is one of the best inside our story,
Toussaint Louverture. So, Toussaint Louverture was one guy that was enslaved in Haiti, that he was so good of a slave that his criminal master let him free. So then he started being loyal to the French till he finally understood the conditions that Haiti was in, and then he went against the French. The French did not know that he would go against them because he was being too loyal to France to just go against them. That's what they thought.
And that's also one of the great tactics. So how did he find himself in Haiti? You know, all these people came from somewhere. His mom was from Dahomey, which was before Togo.
That is now known as Togo and Benin.
So this was called German West Africa. So
then his mom got killed. And he got taken by a French ship to Haiti.
And that's how he found himself there.
Because it was in the line of French West Africa.
And then
just near the coast of French Ivory Coast.
Now, the part of this story of the Haitian Revolution is that how did they communicate? How did they let each other know how to be free? First, let's understand how France guessed how to divide Haiti. Haiti was divided into these 4 classes.
The big white, or the grand blue, that were the larger ones, the plantation owners,
that were inside France and allowed the who called little whites,
also known as the petit blancs,
us would do the actual bad work. Now, also the petite blancs were also people who rather doesn't like work. Anything that had to do with strength, they weren't in for it.
So then there were the free people of color. And then there was the last group, the Africans, the African slaves.
We have to go dig into how these people become free, because the free people of color are a really interesting group. And how?
First, there were women that were removed from slavery, and then some petite blancs were first into marrying them. And then, typically, their son should be free, or their daughter should be free.
So in a long period of time,
and lots of generations passed, there became a huge population and majority called the free people of color.
So, the first thing we have to discuss here is that...
But the problem was, there was more men slaves than female slaves. So the free people of color were not a huge
majority.
Because it first starts as a slave woman marrying a petit blanc.
Via a forced relationship?
Most of the time, it was a forced relationship, but only a small percentage, and actually never happened, was then going by themselves in love. That only happened once.
So, that's how this happened. Then there was... Let me tell you just a little fact. The people who are called the free people of color were more educated, were more life-fulfilling, their life were more fulfilling than the petite blanc.
And they in fact had more money than the petite blanc. You wonder how? Because if they gain any money, they'll keep it there,
where they stay put. Not like the petite blanc
that take their riches and go to France
and waste them. So now here's another one, which was just the Africans taken by ship, or what we would call them for the rest of the video, the kidnapped Africans.
So now, then Toussaint Louverture went to France himself to ask them if it was okay to start a revolution. The French disagreed, so he went back home, starting even a more worse of a revolution to France.
So they fought. Let me tell you something. How did they get guns? They were shooting. How did they get guns? Most of these people, most of them fought in the American Revolution.
Or the American Civil War.
No, American Revolution. So when they were fighting Britain, remember that? So most of them had general experience how to work this type of wars, how to work a revolution. So another thing how they got guns is when they first started using the materials from the sugar plantations to come in another use. Their machetes became knives. And then when they finally killed lots of Frenchmen with guns, they took the guns for armor. So, and that's how they got the large majority of people got their guns.
After that, guerrilla warfare turns into gun against gun. No more gun against machete.
No, it was gun against gun. This time it was a fair game. So this is our first chapter of the Haitian Revolution. This will be in parts, only part 1 and part 2. So have a happy day.